If Riley Bennett had said no to covering her friend's shift that morning, her life would have remained utterly average. No accidental coffee stains, no mysterious blue-eyed stranger, and certainly no whirlwind that would turn her entire world upside down. But Riley, broke between jobs and unable to say no to a friend, tied her apron behind the counter of Brew and Bloom Cafe at 6:45 a.m. sharp, without realizing the next hour would alter her fate in a way that felt more like fiction than real life. It started with a spilled latte. It ended with a CEO. The morning rush was in full swing. The espresso machine hissed like a dragon, the scent of roasted beans wrapped around everything like a warm hug, and a steady line of grumbling professionals in trench coats and earbuds stretched to the door. Riley's ponytail bounced as she darted behind the counter, taking orders with a practiced smile. She wasn't a barista by trade, more like a freelance designer who hadn't landed steady work in 6 months, but she could fake it well enough. Her friend Lacey had begged her to cover for a quick morning shift, which Riley quickly discovered was code for 3 hours of chaos and caffeine-fueled warfare. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepped the next latte, hazelnut oat milk double shot, and carefully balanced it on the tray with 2 other drinks. "Order for Declan," she called out. There was no reply. She glanced at the slip. No, last name. But the order had been paid for through the app. Mobile pickup, she assumed. "Declan?" she repeated louder. A tall man in a dark navy suit stepped forward from the corner, where he'd been scrolling through his phone. He moved with a kind of crisp precision, like he was used to people moving out of his way. Riley, however, was not people. As she turned toward him, one of the cups began to wobble on the edge of the tray. She overcorrected, bumping the corner, the counter, and time slowed. The hazelnut oat milk latte flew. She watched in horror as it splashed directly onto the man's pristine white shirt, soaking it instantly. The heat made him flinch, but he said nothing as the brown liquid dripped down his buttons and onto his slacks. "Oh my God," Riley gasped, dropping the tray entirely. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to." He didn't yell. He didn't snap. He simply looked down at the mess and then up at her, blue eyes cold and unreadable. "It's fine," he said, voice smooth and clipped. "Accidents happen. Let me clean it. We have napkins, maybe some club soda. I can comp your drink or pay for dry cleaning or—" "No need." He straightened, tugging the wet fabric away from his chest. "Just, be more careful." He turned and walked out of the cafe, coffee-stained and silent, leaving Riley staring at the door with her heart pounding in her throat. Several customers snickered. One girl pulled out her phone, probably recording. Riley's face burned. She survived the rest of the shift in a daze, her hands shaking slightly as she wiped down tables and refilled syrups. When Lacey finally arrived to relieve her, Riley peeled off the apron like it was made of lead and dragged herself outside. As she trudged home through the drizzle, her phone buzzed with a text. "Unknown number. You owe me a new shirt. Declan Her." Breath caught. She hadn't given her number to anyone today. Her name tag hadn't had her last name on it. How did he— Before she could reply, another message came in. "Also, I'd like to talk. Tomorrow, noon, 85, Park Ave, top floor." There was no emoji, no signature flourish. Just that. Riley reread the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Talk? About what? And how did he get her number? Park Avenue sounded familiar. She Googled it. Her mouth fell open. It was the headquarters of Castle, Hartwell, one of the most powerful investment firms on the East Coast. She'd read an article about them last year, one of those Forbes features with slick photos and absurdly handsome CEOs standing in front of glass buildings. She clicked on the article and froze. Declan Hartwell, 35, tech venture capitalist, co-founder of a billion-dollar firm, one of New York's youngest, most elusive power players. The photo showed the same man she'd spilled coffee on, tall, severe, piercing gaze. "Oh crap," she whispered. The next morning, Riley stood outside the skyscraper, biting her lip and clutching the hem of her blazer like it might protect. Her from humiliation. What did he want? Was he going to threaten to sue? Did rich people do that over coffee? The security desk waved her through without a word. Someone had clearly left her name. She rode the elevator to the top floor, each ding making her stomach twist tighter. When the doors opened, she stepped into a space that felt more like an art gallery than an office. Minimalist furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that took her breath away. And there he was. Declan Hartwell, clean shirt, no coffee in sight. He gestured to a sleek leather chair. "Miss Bennett, please, sit." She sat, gripping the armrests. "Look, if this is about yesterday, it's not," he interrupted. She blinked. "It's not?" He folded his hands. "I'm not here to talk about my shirt, though I will say it was Armani." Her cheeks flushed. "I'll pay for it, I swear." "That won't be necessary. What I want is a little more complicated." Riley's brow furrowed. "What kind of complicated?" Declan leaned forward slightly. "I need someone who knows how to think on her feet, who doesn't crumble under why? Pressure. Who can handle a mess, literally, and still own the situation. Are you offering me a job?" "Not just any job," he said, eyes narrowing. "I want you to pose as my assistant." Her brain stuttered. "What?" "Temporary. 1 month. I have a merger negotiation that's leaking to the press. My real assistant took an unexpected leave. I need someone sharp, unpredictable, someone the other side won't see coming." "I spilled coffee on you." "Exactly. You're disarming." Riley blinked. This had to be a prank. A billionaire CEO hiring her because she was disarming, and what happens after a month? He smiled faintly. You go back to your life, maybe with a reference, maybe with more. She didn't trust this. She wasn't sure if she trusted him, but rent was due. Her bank account was a war zone, and there was something electric in the air, like saying yes would mean stepping into movie scene she didn't audition for but suddenly got the lead role in. Riley took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I'm in." Riley Bennett had never seen herself as anyone's assistant, especially not to a man like Declan Hartwell. But as she stepped into the executive suite of Castle and Hartwell the next morning, dressed in a borrowed blazer and heels that pinched her toes, she found herself holding a leather-bound planner and answering to Miss Bennett, the new EA. Executive assistant, or in her case, executive actor. Declan hadn't exaggerated the situation. The office was buzzing with tension. Conversations halted as she passed, side eyes trailing her like smoke. Most of them probably expected someone older, sharper, and more corporate. Riley didn't fit the mold. She knew it, and apparently so did everyone else. "You're late." Declan's voice cut through her thoughts like a scalpel. He stood by the massive window in his office, perfectly tailored. Suit immaculate, arms folded. "I'm early by 5 minutes," she said, checking her phone. He arched an eyebrow. "In my world, 5 minutes early is 5 minutes late." "Right, noted." She resisted the urge to salute. Instead, she closed the door behind her and took a breath. "So what exactly am I doing here? Besides pretending to be the help?" "You're here to keep eyes off the real problem." Declan moved to his desk and tapped a screen. An email appeared, projected on a sleek wall panel. "Confidential. Castle and Hartwell. Merger insider info, sent anonymously, to several media outlets, with attachments. Someone inside is leaking details about our merger talks with Trionics Global," Declan said. "If the wrong terms go public, we lose leverage, and the deal could collapse. Hundreds of jobs could be lost, billions on the line." Riley's eyes widened. "So, you want me to sniff out a mole?" "Exactly." He poured himself a coffee. Black, no sugar, the kind that said, "I don't have time for nonsense." "You think a pretend assistant with zero corporate experience can do that?" "You're underestimated. That's your power." He handed her a file. "This is your fake resume. You're Riley Morgan. You've worked in boutique investment, consulting. No one will question it. Most people here are too self-absorbed to care. And if they do, lie, smile, improvise. You're good at that. Riley opened the file and skimmed. The fake resume read like a dream. Harvard Business School, past roles in sleek firms, even volunteer work in microfinance. Wow, I'm basically Wonder Woman with a briefcase. Declan's lip twitched. Was that a smirk? First task. Shadow me during meetings. Listen more than you talk. Keep your eyes open. The leak could be anyone. Partner, secretary, board member. Someone wants this merger dead. And why do they want that? She asked. Because someone stands to make more if it fails. Riley nodded slowly, her pulse quickening. This wasn't just coffee shop chaos anymore. This was real intrigue. Power, risk, danger. And strangely, she liked it. 10 a.m. First meeting. The boardroom was cold, literally and figuratively. 12 men and 2 women sat around a long marble table. The air buzzed with authority and expensive cologne. Declan introduced Riley with a cool, "This is Ms. Morgan. She's assisting with internal operations and media relations." He didn't mention that she'd spilled coffee on him the day before, or that she was faking everything. Riley sat beside him, nodding confidently, jotting nonsense in a leather notebook she'd found in her borrowed bag. Her notes read, "Guy in gray tie. Suspicious blonde lady keeps glancing at Declan. Weird tension, I miss iced coffee." The meeting was full of jargon, P&L statements, equity restructuring, share dilution. Riley tried to keep up, but her attention snagged on one man in particular. Marcus Veltman, VP of Strategy. Late 40s, slicked back hair, Rolex the size of a dessert plate. He kept interrupting Declan, redirecting the conversation, and worst of all, tapping away at his phone under the table. Riley leaned slightly, eyes narrowing. Marcus wasn't checking email. He was sending one. When the meeting adjourned, Declan turned to her the moment the door closed. Impressions? Marcus. Definitely shady. He spent half the meeting texting. Declan nodded. He's been on my radar. Keep watching him. Can I go full spy? Like, plant a bug in his office? No, Declan said dryly. But we'll go the old-fashioned route. Observation, distraction, leverage. Riley grinned. So basically, I flirt with him and then snoop? Declan's jaw tightened slightly. Do whatever gets results. Just don't get caught. 12:30 p.m. Lunch in the executive lounge. The executive lounge was a sleek space with panoramic views, plush seating, and artisanal lunches that looked too pretty to eat. Riley picked at a beet salad while pretending to check her phone. Across the room, Marcus was laughing too loudly at something a junior associate said. Fake laugh. Forced. Performative. She casually approached the coffee machine, the same brand they used at Brew and Bloom. Need help with that? Marcus asked, walking over with his signature smirk. She offered a perfectly calculated smile. Just pretending to look busy. I know that game. I invented it. He leaned in. So you're the new assistant. Fancy background, Harvard, right? Class of 2019, she lied smoothly. Impressive. You know, I used to teach seminars at HBS. Finance ethics. Ethics? That's cute. She sipped her coffee. Is that before or after your insider trading scandal? His face froze. Just for a moment, she laughed, brushing it off. I'm kidding. Your face, though, priceless. Marcus chuckled too, but there was a flicker in his eyes. Not amusement. Caution. Good, Riley thought. Let him wonder. 2 p.m. Unexpected moment. Back in Declan's office, Riley dropped the charm and tossed her notebook onto the desk. He's hiding something? I know, but I need proof. Concrete evidence. You realize I'm not a detective, right? I used to design logos for bakeries. You're doing fine, he said, sipping coffee. Better than most of my staff. There was a strange silence after that, comfortable but charged. Why me? She asked softly. Declan looked at her for a long moment. Because you're honest. You didn't try to cover your mistake. You faced it. That matters more than credentials. Riley wasn't sure what to say to that, so she asked instead, what happens if this all goes sideways? If the merger fails? His eyes darkened. We lose everything, and I'll have to tear down the company I built to save it. The weight of that hit harder than she expected. This wasn't just the game. He wasn't just some rich jerk with a vendetta. He was fighting for something real. And now, so was she. 4:45 p.m. The email as Riley packed up for the day, her phone buzzed. A burner number, one she didn't recognize. Unknown, you're... Over your head, Riley Morgan. Quit now or you'll regret it. Her heart stopped. She hadn't told anyone her alias. Not even Lacey. She turned toward Declan's office, but he was gone. The sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows over the polished floors. For the first time since stepping into this life, Riley didn't feel like she was faking it. She felt like a target, and maybe, just maybe, a threat. The anonymous message replayed in Riley's mind all night. You're in over your head, Riley Morgan. Quit now, or you'll regret it. Not Bennett. Morgan. The fake surname Declan had assigned her. Someone inside the building knew her alias, and knew it wasn't real. That meant they were watching her, and they wanted her gone. She barely slept. Every sound from the hallway in her apartment made her jump. At one point, a car alarm went off outside, and she sat bolt upright, heart pounding. By morning, she looked like someone had mugged a raccoon. Still, she showed up at Castle and Hartwell, lips glossed, hair tied back, blazer crisp. Her hands trembled only slightly as she scanned her badge and rode the elevator to the top floor. Declan was already in his office, suit flawless, fingers flying across a wireless keyboard. The man didn't seem capable of creases or concern. You look tired, he said without looking up. You look like you sleep in a cryo chamber. He smirked. What happened? Riley tossed her phone on his desk. The text was still on screen. Declan's eyes narrowed. When did you get this? Last night, round 4:47. It came from a burner number. They used the alias you gave me, Declan. This wasn't random. He stared at the message for a long moment, jaw tight. This means someone inside already suspects you're not who you say you are, he said finally. They feel threatened. So, what do? We keep going. We shake the tree until the snake falls out. Lovely metaphor, Riley muttered. But what if the snake bites me first? Declan stood and walked to the window, his silhouette etched in the morning light. Then we bite back harder. 10:30 a.m. Playing the game. The next meeting on Declan's calendar was an internal strategy review with the executive team, minus the board. Riley sat silently at the back of the room, dressed in a smart black blouse and navy slacks. Holding a stylus she barely knew how to use. Marcus Veltman entered the room last, greeting everyone with a practiced smile. He made a point not to look at Riley. Declan opened the meeting by laying out revised merger projections, revenue forecasts, risk buffers, tax implications. Riley didn't follow every word, but she was starting to get better at pretending she did. Then Marcus spoke. I still think we're over-leveraged in year 2 of the integration. Trionix's debt profile is risky. We should renegotiate before the leak gets worse. Declan's gaze sharpened. There is no confirmed leak, Marcus. Yet, Marcus said, shrugging. But the whispers are getting louder. You saw the financial Herald piece this morning? Riley hadn't. Declan had. They quoted anonymous internal sources suggesting doubts about the merger's viability. Marcus added, if this gets out, Trionix might walk. Declan said nothing, but Riley noticed the tension in his jaw, the slight curl of his fingers on the armrest. He wasn't just annoyed. He was furious, and that told her one thing. Marcus wasn't just speculating. He was testing the waters, pushing buttons, gauging reactions. Later, as the group dispersed, Riley trailed after Marcus in the hall, playing the part of a mildly intrigued assistant. Hey, she said, catching up. Do you always ask the hard questions in meetings or just when you want to look like the smartest guy in the room? He turned slowly, smiling tightly. Somebody has to keep things real. Like real's good, so what's your theory? On the leak, Marcus chuckled. Let me guess, boss man wants you to cozy up and dig around? Riley's breath caught. He knew. I'm just trying to learn, she deflected. This place is a lot. He stepped closer. Be careful, Ms. Morgan. Some of us bite. She held his gaze. I'm not scared of snakes. He walked away, leaving her heart thudding in her chest. 1:15 p.m. Truths and half-lies back in Declan's office, she shut the door and said, "He knows." Declan didn't ask who. He already knew. What did he say? Nothing direct. But he knows I'm not who I say I am. He practically laughed in my face. Declan steepled his fingers. Then he's bluffing. Or baiting. That too. She crossed her arms. I'm starting to think I should walk. Let you hire someone trained for this. No. You're too deep in now. If you vanish, it confirms his suspicions. Worse, it tells him I'm scared. So, I'm your human shield now? Something like that. He leaned back. Besides, you're better at this than you think. She stared at him. You keep saying that, but I'm not a spy. I'm not a genius analyst or a boardroom badass. I spilled coffee on you. That's all I did. You owned it. He stood and walked to her, voice lower now. You didn't make excuses. You didn't crumble. You walked into a battlefield and made people underestimate you. That's a weapon. Use it. Riley hated to admit it, but the way he said it made her believe it. 3:00 p.m. Deep digging. She spent the rest of the afternoon digging, through publicly accessible files, staff directories, press clippings, and then she found it. Marcus Veltman had once worked with Trionyx, not just briefly. He'd consulted on their 2018 expansion into Europe. Quietly, it hadn't made big news. Why hadn't Declan mentioned that? Riley printed out the report and walked into his office. Marcus used to work with Trionyx. Declan looked up sharply. Where did you find this? Public filings, deep in the footnotes. He was listed as a strategic advisor. That explains why he's been pushing doubt into the merger. He has ties on both sides. Declan stood, suddenly energized. If he's playing both ends, he's feeding Trionyx our weaknesses while telling them what to demand in renegotiations. Which tanks your position, Riley said, catching on. Which kills the deal, or forces me to settle for crumbs. He looked at her with something like pride. You did good. It sent a strange flutter through her chest. 6:30 p.m. The unseen, just as Riley was preparing to leave, Declan's assistant returned from medical leave. Tasha Rivera, sharp-suited and sharper-tongued. She gave Riley a once-over and didn't even try to hide her disdain. Filling in? Tasha asked sweetly. Just for a few days, Riley lied. Tasha turned to Declan. You'll want to check your private inbox. An urgent from Trionyx. As she left the room, Declan opened the message and cursed under his breath. What? Is it? Riley asked. They want to renegotiate. Today. They claim we violated a non-disclosure. Marcus fed them our terms. Can we stop it? Only if we get proof. He looked at Riley, and she understood. This wasn't a game anymore. This was for a woman who had only agreed to cover a coffee shop shift 2 days ago. Riley Bennett, a.k.a. Riley Morgan, was now tangled in a game of corporate espionage involving billion-dollar mergers, sabotage, and men in power with secrets they'd killed to protect. She stared at Declan Hartwell from across his office, the weight of his latest revelation pressing down like a thundercloud. They want to renegotiate the merger, he repeated, citing leaked proprietary terms, ones only. A handful of people knew, including Marcus. Riley stood frozen. And you're sure he fed them the intel? Declan nodded. I know it, but that's not enough. Trionyx has lawyers. They'll argue the information came from outside. Rumor, deduction, coincidence. I need proof Marcus shared our terms. Something irrefutable. She swallowed. You want me to get that? His eyes locked onto hers. You're the only one I trust right now. It wasn't flattery. It was desperation. She nodded. Then we set a trap. 10:00 p.m. The plan that night, Riley sat at her tiny kitchen, Table wearing pajamas, surrounded by sticky notes, printouts, and a lukewarm energy drink. The plan had to be subtle. Marcus wasn't just cunning, he was paranoid. Any obvious move would tip him off. She needed to dangle bait so tempting he couldn't resist. The trap was a fake document, a fabricated internal memo Riley would accidentally let Marcus glimpse. It would contain exaggerated terms for a hypothetical secret clause in the merger deal. Terms no sane company would accept, but juicy enough to tempt a mole into leaking it. If Trionics reacted to that clause within the next 24-48 hours, Declan would know the leak wasn't theoretical. It was real. It was Marcus. And they'd have proof. The document read, "Confidential, executive eyes only. Subject, final clause, inclusion for Trionics merger, unreleased draft." Clause 14C. In the event of merger finalization, Trionics Global reserves exclusive rights to future renewable investments within Castle and Hartwell's green tech portfolio, valued at 1.3 billion projected. This clause supersedes all prior asset distribution conversations and has not been disclosed to board or legal teams. Further review by CEO pending, do not circulate. "It's bait," Riley whispered, saving the file to a USB and to her encrypted cloud. Now we wait. The next morning, 8:15 a.m., Riley entered Castle and Hartwell, early, dressed in smart high-waisted trousers, a silk blouse, and low heels. She stopped at the break room first, knowing it was Marcus's morning ritual to stop by for his special order cappuccino. As predicted, he strolled in a few minutes later, tie sharp, eyes scanning everything. Riley pretended to fumble with her coffee, while her open leather folder, containing a printed version of the fake clause memo, sat on the counter next to her elbow. Marcus noticed. "Early bird," he commented, reaching for the machine. "Trying to make up for my lack of decades of experience," she said lightly. He smiled, but his eyes flicked down to the open folder. "Something juicy?" he asked. "Oh." She closed it quickly. "Just exec-level stuff. Not even supposed to have it technically." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" She leaned in slightly. "There's a clause in the merger proposal, Clause 14C. It's nuts. Basically hands Trionics a chunk of the renewable portfolio." She said it like a girl who didn't know better, like someone he could manipulate. "Does Declan know you're reading his mail?" Marcus asked, tone playful but laced with sharpness. "No," Riley whispered conspiratorially. "That's why you didn't see this." She left the folder on the table as she exited. 30 seconds later, she doubled back around the corner and peeked. Marcus was photographing the document with his phone. Bingo. Later, that day, 1:25 p.m. Riley met Declan in his office over lunch. She laid out the entire setup, from the fake memo to the moment. Marcus snapped the picture. Declan didn't blink. "I'll have my legal team draft a unique version of the clause with embedded tracking. If Trionics responds to it, we'll have time-stamped proof Marcus leaked sensitive company IP." "And then what?" Riley asked. "We confront him? Fire him?" "Not yet. If he's been feeding intel to Trionics, we need to know how far it goes. If he's been paid, promised a seat on their board, or worse, if he's holding dirt on other people in this company." "You think it's that bad?" "I think we're only seeing the tip of it." His voice was grave. "I also think you just saved my company." Riley felt warmth bloom in her chest, but also fear, because something about all this felt too neat, too easy. The twist, 4 p.m. Riley's phone buzzed again, another unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello?" Silence for a second. Then, "You think you're clever." The voice was distorted. Male, familiar. "Who is this?" "You're playing a dangerous game, Ms. Morgan, one you're not prepared for." Her throat tightened. "I'm hanging up." "I wouldn't. Not if you want to keep your real name clean or your little art portfolio business out of the news." Her legs went cold. He knew about her graphic design work, her real life. The one before all this. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Oh, you do. And if you keep snooping where you don't belong, I'll make sure everyone else knows too, including your friend Lacey." "Cute girl." He hung up. Riley stared at her phone, hands shaking. Someone wasn't just aware of the trap. They were watching. "2:20 p.m. Choices back at her apartment, Riley paced the floor. She had two options. A. Walk away. Let Declan deal with Marcus. Save herself. Protect her real identity and stay out of the blast zone. Double down. Go all in. Find out who the caller really was. Expose the mole and stop this deal from blowing up." Riley didn't sleep. Instead, she hacked together a simple script from a friend's tool that could trace any IPs connected to the cloud file link. She sent Declan, with the fake clause embedded in the metadata. She set an alert. If anyone outside Castle and Hartwell accessed that file, she'd know. And at 2:14 a.m., the alert pinged, not from Marcus's usual email address, from a different IP entirely. One registered to Trionix's legal team, and the metadata showed that Marcus had sent them the link from a dummy account. She had the proof. But then another ping came. Another user, same file, different IP, and that IP belonged to someone inside Castle and Hartwell, not Marcus, Tasha Rivera, Declan's longtime assistant. Riley's blood ran cold. There wasn't just one leak. There were two, and they were working together. 2:27 a.m. Riley stared at her laptop screen, the glow from the monitor casting stark shadows across her sleepless face. Two IPs had accessed the bait file. One matched Marcus Veltman's known devices. The other, Tasha Rivera, Declan's loyal executive. Assistant, except she wasn't loyal at all. It changed everything. Why? Riley whispered, scrolling through data logs. Why would she be involved? Tasha had only just returned from medical leave. On the surface, she seemed annoyed by Riley but not hostile. She had a history with Declan. She was trusted, discreet, efficient. But now she was part of the leak, and Riley didn't believe coincidences anymore. She created a backup of the access logs and screenshots, uploading them to a secure cloud folder she only used in emergencies. Then she slid the USB into the side of her laptop and copied the files again, just in case. 9:02 a.m. Castle and Hartwell, Declan's expression darkened as Riley relayed what she'd discovered over the night. He sat stiffly behind his desk, jaw tense, tie slightly loosened, an unusual tell for someone usually composed to a fault. "Tasha," he said finally, voice quiet. "Are you sure?" "I'm positive." She opened the file. Same metadata ping, same access point. She knew the bait was fake, though. She didn't report it. She shared it. Riley nodded grimly. "Which means Marcus isn't the only one trying to sabotage the merger. He has help." Declan stood and walked to the window, back straight but energy taut, like a coiled spring. "They've been playing me," he murmured. "All this time. I kept Tasha close for years. I trusted her with everything. Why would she betray you?" "I don't know," he muttered. "But I'm going to find out." He turned back to Riley. "We need to move. Fast. If Trionix acts on that file, or if Tasha and Marcus realize they've been made, it's over." Riley pulled out the USB. "Then let's finish this." 10:45 a.m. The confrontation, Declan scheduled an emergency leadership meeting. Said it was about, merger security protocols. All the key people showed up, including Marcus and Tasha. Riley stood off to the side of the long conference table, holding a tablet and pretending to be invisible. Declan opened with practiced calm. "Before we proceed, I want to address a situation we've uncovered, one that puts our entire future at risk." Murmurs spread across the room. "We discovered a leak," Declan continued. "A file, top secret, unreleased, confidential, was accessed from inside this company. Then it was sent to Trionix's legal team from a burner account." He paused. The file was fake. It was bait. Marcus's smile faded. Declan's gaze slid directly to him. "It was accessed first from a device associated with your secure login, Marcus." Marcus cleared his throat. I don't know what you're talking about," but Declan didn't stop. "And second," he said, slowly turning, "it was opened from Tasha Rivera's device." All heads turned. Tasha stiffened, but her expression didn't falter. That's absurd. I just returned from leave. I have logs, Riley said quietly, stepping forward. Both IPs, metadata matches, tracked through Castle and Hartwell's firewall. The timestamps are less than 6 minutes apart. Declan walked around the table. Care to explain? Marcus stood up, voice rising. You don't have the right to stage a public trial. I want legal counsel. Tasha stood too. Her voice was sharp. I suggest you think very carefully about what you're accusing us of, Declan. But he didn't flinch. I've already thought it through. I trusted you both. You betrayed that trust. You jeopardized a $12 billion merger, and you endangered the careers of every employee in this building. He turned to security, who were quietly waiting outside. Escort them to the holding suite. Legal will handle the rest. As Marcus and Tasha were taken away, their eyes locked on Riley. Tasha said nothing, but her glare promised retribution. Marcus, on the other hand, smiled. You don't even know what you're caught up in, he said to Riley as he passed her. Hartwell's not the angel you think he is. And then he was gone. 2:15 p.m. The fallout, the rest of the day unfolded. Like dominoes, emails were traced, internal communications subpoenaed. Lawyers swarmed like sharks in a feeding frenzy. Trionix's legal team backpedaled, trying to pin the leak on unauthorized third-party contractors. But the damage was controlled, and Riley had done it. She walked into Declan's office late that afternoon, exhausted but buzzing. He looked up and smiled, genuinely. You did it. No, she said, sitting across from him. We did it. He studied her a moment. Why did you stay? Riley blinked. What? When you got that threat, when you realized how deep this went, you could have walked. She hesitated, then shrugged. Because you didn't. Because this matters to you, because I wanted to prove I could do more than just spill coffee. He laughed softly, then stood and walked around the desk. You're more than that. Riley, you always were. There was a pause, a breath. Then he added more carefully, I want you to stay. She tilted her head. As what? My assistant for now. But something tells me that's just the beginning. She looked at him, eyebrows raised. Declan, I've been working for you for less than a week. Yes, and in that time, you've stopped corporate espionage, uncovered 2 moles,